An emergency Arab summit on the Palestinian issue is set to take place in Cairo, Egypt today, with a focus on the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, a plan to rebuild Gaza, and establishing a Palestinian state, according to local media reports. The first focus of the summit will be on whether to proceed with a second phase of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. On January 19th, the first phase of the agreement came into effect. It lasted for 42 days and expired last weekend. Discussions will also include the possibility of an Israel withdrawal from Gaza. The second major topic is Egypt's proposed reconstruction plan for Gaza, which advocates setting up a Palestinian-led committee to manage Gaza. The third major topic of the summit is the establishment of a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, aiming to reach a comprehensive political solution to the Israel-Palestine issue. Local media analysis suggests that Egypt's proposed Gaza reconstruction plan is likely to be approved at the summit, which is expected to be the most fruitful outcome from the meeting. According to earlier reports from Egyptian media, Egypt's proposed Gaza reconstruction plan calls for the formation of a committee composed of Palestinians to manage Gaza, but Hamas will not be involved in the management. Instead, international involvement in Gaza's reconstruction plan will be encouraged, without forcing Gaza residents to relocate to other countries. The plan is expected to be implemented in 3 phases over the next 3 to 5 years. In February, US President Donald Trump made remarks about the Gaza Strip, calling for the temporary relocation of a significant portion of Gaza's Palestinian population to countries like Egypt and Jordan. Recently, Israel has closed the entry points for humanitarian aid to Gaza. Local media analysis suggests that the convening of this emergency summit highlights the shared concerns among Arab nations about the future of the Israel-Palestine issue.
One person was killed and several were injured when a car drove into a crowd of people in the western German city of Mannheim, a police spokesperson said on Monday, March 3rd. The car's driver has been detained, but it is unclear whether there are other suspects, the spokesperson added. Police are appealing to the public to avoid the area. The incident occurred as crowds gathered in cities across western Germany's Rhineland for parades to mark the carnival season.
Gegen 12:15 Uhr kam es hier im Bereich des Mannheimer Paradeplatzes in der Fußgängerzone zu einem größeren Polizeieinsatz. Aktuell können wir schon bestätigen, dass ein Auto in der Fußgängerzone in eine Menschengruppe gerast ist und hierbei leider eine Person ums Leben kam. Weiterhin wurden mehrere Personen schwer verletzt. Wie viele und wie schwer die Verletzungen sind, dazu können wir aktuell noch keine Angaben machen.
A black SUV drove at high speed into a group of people, traveling from the centrally located Paradeplatz Square towards the city's landmark water tower, local media reported.
Auch können wir bestätigen, dass eine Person im Rahmen der Ermittlungen, im Rahmen der Fahndung festgenommen wurde. Ob es mehrere Täter gab, dazu können wir keine Angaben machen. Wir haben die App Katwan ausgelöst und hierbei den Bereich in der Mannheimer Innenstadt zu einem gefährlichen Ort eingestuft, sodass wir alle Anwohnerinnen und Anwohner und auch alle Besucher bitten, zu Hause zu bleiben und diesen Bereich zu räumen.
Security has been a key concern in Germany following a string of violent attacks in recent weeks, including deadly car rammings in Magdeburg in December and in Munich last month, as well as a stabbing in Mannheim in May 2024. Police are on high alert for this year's carnival parades after social media accounts connected to the Islamic State militant group called for attacks on the events in Cologne and Nuremberg.
Der Bereich der Mannheimer Fußgängerzone ist hergerichtet für die alljährliche Fastnacht. Aktuell war keine Veranstaltung, es war aber bei diesem schönen Wetter viel los, die Fußgängerzone war gut besucht, sodass wir aktuell aber leider nicht sagen können, wie viele verletzte Personen es bei dieser Tat gab.
Pakistani and Afghan security forces clashed on Monday, March 3rd, at the recently shuttered main border crossing between the two countries, killing at least one combatant and injuring several, officials said. The conflict erupted on the first working day of the holy Islamic month of Ramadan, when food imports from Pakistan usually peak in Afghanistan, which is facing a humanitarian and hunger crisis. A 10-day-old closure of the Torkham border point has stranded thousands of trucks filled with essential goods. The Taliban-run Afghan Interior Ministry said on Monday the latest firing took place overnight and that one Taliban fighter had been killed and 2 injured. Two Pakistani security officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, said that members of the Pakistani security forces had been wounded. Pakistan's Foreign Office did not respond to a request for comment. The neighboring countries have a strained relationship, with Pakistan saying that several Islamist militant attacks that have occurred there have been launched from Afghan soil, a charge the Taliban deny. Pakistani military aircraft carried out strikes that killed dozens on Afghan territory in December. The Torkham crossing is the main transit artery for travelers and goods between Pakistan and landlocked Afghanistan. Trade between the two countries was worth over $1.6 billion in 2024, according to Pakistan's Foreign Office. Millions of Afghans are at risk of hunger, and around half the population needs humanitarian assistance to survive, according to the United Nations.
Agency workers will be included in a ban on exploitative zero-hour contracts as part of amendments to the government's employment reform bill, the BBC understands. The new rules will mean that agency workers will have to be offered a contract guaranteeing a minimum number of hours each week. It is one of a number of additions to the Employment Rights Bill which will be outlined today. While unions welcome the inclusion of agency workers in the ban, the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, which represents the sector, said the change should not undermine the flexibility that zero-hour contracts offer some workers. Agency workers who choose to be on zero-hour contracts will also be made eligible for compensation if their shifts are changed at short notice, it is understood. Although the amendments will not spell out what short notice means. There are around 1 million agency staff in the UK, working across areas such as warehouses, in hospitality and within the NHS. The Labour government pledged last year to ban exploitative zero-hour contracts as part of the Employment Rights Bill. The minimum hours offered in a contract to agency workers will be calculated according to the average number of hours they normally work. According to the BBC, the government is yet to decide whether this will be based on a 12-week reference period or longer. Trade unions will be campaigning for agency workers to be included in the legislative changes to prevent employers getting around the proposed zero-hour rules by hiring agency staff.
U.S. President Donald Trump has paused military aid to Ukraine following his clash with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky last week. That's according to a White House official who, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said, quote, "President Trump has been clear that he is focused on peace. We need our partners to be committed to that goal as well. We are pausing and reviewing our aid to ensure that it is contributing to a solution." The White House had no immediate comment on the scope and amount of aid affected or how long the pause would last. The Pentagon could not provide further details. Zelensky's office did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment, nor did the Ukrainian embassy in Washington. The move deepens the rift that is opened between the two one-time allies. It comes after Trump upended U.S. policy on Ukraine and Russia upon taking office in January and taking a friendlier approach to Moscow, and after an explosive confrontation with Zelensky in the White House on Friday, in which Trump criticized him for being insufficiently grateful for Washington's backing in the war with Russia.
You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards, but without us, you don't have any cards.
Since Russia's invasion nearly 3 years ago, the U.S. Congress has approved $175 billion in total assistance for Ukraine, according to the nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The announced pause in military aid applies mainly to aid that has been previously approved but not yet dispersed. Trump has not approved any new aid since his term began. However, he suggested on Monday that a deal to open up Ukraine's minerals to U.S. investment could still be on the table.
Mr. President, is the Ukraine minerals deal now dead, or can it be revived? What's your...
Well, I'll let you know. We're making a speech. You probably heard about it tomorrow night, so I'll let you know tomorrow night. But no, I don't think so.
The Trump administration views a minerals deal as America's way of earning back some of the aid given to Ukraine since Russia invaded 3 years ago. On Monday, Trump also described it as a great deal for us and suggested he'd give an update on the situation during a speech to a joint session of Congress set for Tuesday night.
A clash between US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House was a manufactured escalation, Germany's likely next Chancellor Friedrich Merz said on Monday. Trump and Zelensky had a very public heated spat at the White House in front of the worldwide press during the Ukrainian leader's visit to the United States last week. During the exchange of words, the US president accused the Ukrainian of gambling with World War III. Speaking on the issue, Merz was unsure of the authenticity of Friday's heated debate between the two leaders.
Ja, es ist nach meiner Einschätzung keine spontane Reaktion auf Interventionen von Zelensky gewesen, sondern offensichtlich eine herbeigeführte Eskalation in dieser Begegnung im Oval Office. Üblicherweise dauern ja diese Pressetermine auch nur wenige Minuten. Am Freitag war das anders und ja, ich muss sagen, ich bin einigermaßen erstaunt gewesen, auch über den gegenseitigen Umgangston. Das war der Sache nicht dienlich, aber es ist nun mal in der Reihe der Ereignisse der letzten Wochen und Monate, einschließlich auch des Auftretens der amerikanischen Delegation in München auf der Sicherheitskonferenz, eine gewisse Kontinuität, was wir da zurzeit aus Washington sehen. Und ich werbe dafür, dass wir uns darauf einstellen, dass wir sehr, sehr viel mehr für unsere eigene Sicherheit in den nächsten Jahren und Jahrzehnten tun müssen. Ich werbe auch dafür, dass wir alles tun, um die Amerikaner auch in Europa zu halten. Ich glaube, dass die Amerikaner ein eigenes Interesse daran haben, auch haben sollten, in Europa zu bleiben, mit Europa zusammen auch eine transatlantische Partnerschaft aufrechtzuerhalten. Aber ich habe kein abgeschlossenes Bild und ich habe kein abgeschlossenes Urteil.
Merz, who is seeking to form a coalition after his Conservatives won a snap election last month, said that Europe was now under pressure to act quickly.
Und wir sprechen auch bis jetzt nicht über Zahlen, sondern wir sprechen über die Frage, ob wir denn hier noch zu einer gemeinsamen Lösung kommen. Die Dringlichkeit aus meiner Sicht ist groß. Wir sollten versuchen, das auch vor dem EU-Gipfel am Donnerstag zu vereinbaren. Aber ich kann Ihnen weder den Weg nennen, noch kann ich Ihnen heute Zahlen nennen. Das ist alles offen.
Zelensky's visit to the United States came about after Ukraine and the US were on the verge of signing a minerals deal. The preliminary agreement envisages that an investment fund will be set up for Ukraine's reconstruction.
Naja, Sie sehen aus den Ereignissen dieser Tage, insbesondere dem, was wir da in den letzten Tagen aus Washington gesehen haben, ganz besonders Freitagabend unserer Zeit, einschließlich der Ankündigung für heute, dass es einen enormen Handlungsdruck auf der europäischen Seite gibt und daraus entwickelt sich aus meiner Sicht auch ein gewisser Zeitdruck. Wir müssen jetzt zeigen, dass wir in der Lage sind, selbstständig in Europa zu handeln.
According to the deal, Ukraine will contribute 50% of future proceeds from state-owned mineral resources, oil and gas, to the fund, and the fund will then invest to promote the safety, security and prosperity of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the agreement says the US government will, subject to US law, maintain a long-term financial commitment to the development of a stable and economically prosperous Ukraine.
Fresh trade wars kicked off Tuesday between the US and its top three trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and China, with new steep tariffs from Washington taking effect and triggering retaliation. On Monday night, US President Donald Trump accused all three targeted countries of failing to stop the flow of fentanyl into the US. Just after midnight on the US East Coast, Canadian and Mexican goods were hit with tariffs of 25%. And Trump's new tariffs on Chinese goods were doubled by an extra 10% to a cumulative 20%. Those new tariffs will apply to some major consumer electronics imported by the US, previously untouched by prior duties, including laptops, video game consoles, and Bluetooth devices. On Tuesday, China announced its own tariffs of 10 to 15%, mostly targeting US agriculture like soybeans, meats, and cotton, and added new export restrictions for designated US entities. Speaking to reporters Tuesday, a Chinese parliamentary spokesperson said China was willing to resolve US concerns through consultation and dialogue, but will not accept threats and oppression. Meanwhile, US tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada will likely cause deeper repercussions for the highly integrated North American economy. Canada and Mexico have for decades enjoyed a virtually tariff-free trading relationship with the US. After Trump confirmed tariffs would proceed, financial markets reeled and global stocks tumbled. Both the Canadian dollar and Mexican peso fell against the US dollar. Automaker shares fell sharply, especially for major firms General Motors and Ford, who have production lines in Mexico. Speaking to Reuters, Chris Brigatti, Chief Investment Officer of Southwest Business Corporation, says consumers will bear the brunt of Trump's tariffs.
The tariff situation and its effect on the domestic U.S. economy are really a bigger concern now that we have a more aggressive stance coming out of Washington. And that being said, the stagflation issue is rearing its head. And stagflation is quite simply a stagnant or if not rising, a stable inflation rate, but a declining economic base. And I expect these specific tariffs to be damaging to the economy while increasing the prices of goods and services.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said on Monday Ottawa would hit back with 25% tariffs on up to about $107 billion worth of U.S. goods. Mexico's economy ministry said President Claudia Sheinbaum is expected to announce her response Tuesday. On Tuesday, markets responded to the news with stocks falling and bond yields sliding across Asia and Japan's Nikkei closing down 1.2%. Trump's America First agenda, aimed at redrawing trade relationships in favor of the U.S., is expected to be a centerpiece of his Tuesday night address to a joint session of Congress.
A truck travelling along the highway in southern Bolivia collided with a bus early Monday morning, March 3rd, pushing the bus off the road and killing at least 15 people, police said. The bus rolled around between 500 to 800 metres, 1640 to 2624 feet, down a ravine, Potosi Police spokesperson Limba Chok said.
Acá en Potosí han llegado 19 personas heridas, 15 que están internadas en el Hospital Bracamonte y 4 personas que están internadas en el Hospital de Tercer Nivel. Se está haciendo el rescate de las personas que lastimosamente han perdido la vida. Aproximadamente tenemos entre 15 a 20 personas que habrían fallecido a momentos. Repito, el lugar es de difícil acceso. Lastimosamente, producto de esta colisión, el bus de la empresa Chayapata se ha embarrancado aproximadamente entre 500 a 800 metros.
19 wounded people have been sent to a local hospital, police said. Rescuers are working to recover the bodies of those killed, with the death toll estimated to be between 15 and 20 people. The driver of the truck has been arrested, while the cause of the accident is under investigation. The crash comes just days after more than 36 people were killed in the same region after 2 buses collided.
More than half of adults and a third of children and young people worldwide will be overweight or obese by 2050, posing an unparalleled threat of early death, disease, and enormous strain on healthcare systems, a report warns. Global failures in the response to the growing obesity crisis over the past 3 decades have led to a staggering increase in the numbers affected, according to the analysis published in The Lancet. There are now 2.11 billion adults aged 25 or above and 493 million children and young people aged 5 to 24 who are overweight or obese, the study shows. That is up from 731 million and 198 million respectively in 1990. Urgent policy reform and action, the report says. More than half of those aged 25 or above worldwide and about a third of all children and young people are forecast to be affected by 2050. The research predicts a particularly alarming rise of 121% in obesity among children and younger people, with the number predicted to be living with obesity predicted to hit 360 million by 2050. The unprecedented global epidemic of overweight and obesity is a profound tragedy and a monumental societal failure, said lead author Professor Emanuela Gakido from the University of Washington. The numbers affected vary across the globe, the study shows. More than half of the adults classified as overweight or obese live in just 8 countries: China, India, the United States, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, Indonesia, and Egypt. By 2050, about 1 in 3 children and young people living with obesity are forecast to be in just 2 regions: North America and the Middle East, and Latin America and the Caribbean, with seismic health, economic, and societal consequences, the report says.
Firefly Aerospace succeeded in its first attempt to land on the moon with its uncrewed Blue Ghost spacecraft on Sunday, March 2nd, as a handful of private firms compete to reach the front lines of a global moon race. The size of a compact car, the four-legged Blue Ghost carried 10 scientific payloads as it touched down at around 3:35 a.m. Eastern Time, 0835 GMT, near an ancient volcanic vent on Mare Crisium, a large basin in the northeast corner of the moon's Earth-facing side. Images released by Firefly Aerospace show the first few images captured by the spacecraft after landing. The company becomes the second private firm to score a moon landing. Houston-based Intuitive Machines' Odysseus lander made a lopsided touchdown last year. 5 nations had made successful soft landings in the past: the then Soviet Union, the US, China, India, and last year Japan. The US and China are both rushing to put their astronauts on the moon later this decade.